Well, welcome everybody. It's been 2 months since our last meeting. And Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, welcome back.
Today is January 15th. It's 1997 now. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And we've now are in Lord Me here, Volume 2, which covers the years 1922 to 1925, the book, the biography of the age of the avatar of the age, Meher Baba, by Baal Kalchuri. And it's page 528. It's the Must Allah in Quetta. It begins, although it was bitterly cold in Quetta, the men had to take ice-cold baths, according to the master's orders.
Yeah.
It's almost like today. You see how cold it is out there? While, you're thankful. While the residents of Quetta would seldom even bathe with hot water during the freezing winter. So despite the cold weather, Baba did not stop fasting and would drink only warm milk and almond broth in the mornings. He had plain dal in the evenings. Baba played with all of Rusi's children, but he was most attentive to two of his daughters, Goher and Katie. Goher was only 7 years old and Katie was 3. Baba became their perfect playmate and would teach them games. Katie once remarked to her father, "Meher Baba is such a fine gentleman. Don't allow him to leave."
Sounds like Katie.
While playing caroms one day, he quietly lifted up one of the pieces. Goher complained to him, "Baba, you're cheating. Play honestly." The master laughed. Rusi was an amateur magician and would stage magic shows every evening for Baba's enjoyment, telling jokes and funny stories as he performed his tricks. Rusi also took Baba and the mandali to different orchards and gardens surrounding Quetta, especially the beautiful garden of Jamasp, and showed them the city's many scenic spots. Baba was quite happy in Quetta and pleased to be in Rusi's humorous company. You want to take it?
According to record, the Meher Baba made his first lengthy contact with a Must Allah, a God-intoxicated person, at this time. A very large and strong man covered with lice was staying in a hovel in Quetta, opposite to Baba's residence. For some time, Baba sent the Must tea and breakfast with Adi each day. Then one day, Baba decided to contact the Must. As soon as he got out of the car, the stout man ran to him and caught hold of Baba. As if wrestling with him, he lifted Baba from the ground and began swinging him back and forth. Baba had instructed Adi not to interfere, no matter what happened. Slowly the Must calmed down and released him. It was a strange and awe-inspiring sight for Adi to witness, but Baba made him promise not to tell the others what he had seen. On June 12th, Meher Baba said, "Before proceeding to Persia, I have been thinking of traveling 6 more months in India, walking from Kashmir to Bombay, and stay for a month." He asked the mandali to think about this new plan and the route. The next afternoon, Baba wished to climb the high mountain 2 miles away which overlooked their house. He walked there at a swift pace, and the mandali, finding it hard to keep up after some distance, were practically running behind him. Observing the new strangers and their foreign attire, passers-by began staring at them, and one CID officer even followed the group. That's the CID is like the FBI in India. It's Criminal Investigation Department. Would be its equivalent to the FBI in the United States. So, one CID officer even followed the group. Reaching the base of the mountain, Baba started climbing it with sure and swift strides. But none of the mandali could climb the rocks and slid back down as soon as they had gone up a few feet. Baba came down shortly thereafter, and the group returned to the city. The CID agent, however, did not stop to interrogate them. During their stay, Baba would daily go for walks to various places in Quetta. On June 16th, he walked 3 miles with the mandali to the garden of Ardeshir Golwala, a friend of Rusi's, where they played the game Gilli Danda.
What is that?
You've seen that play.
I've seen a depiction of it.
Okay, basically what they do is they whittle a small stick, with a point on either end.
Yes.
And then they have a larger stick. So what they have to do is they hit the stick, the small stick, and is the gilli. And the danda, of course,
so they make the stick sort of fly.
Yeah, you got to hit it on the edge so the stick bounces. And then you whack the stick, till it goes a certain distance. But see, again, just like in that game with 7 tiles, they have 2 teams. They first, I've played it, it's, you have to push the stick with the danda, the bigger, it's
to
more like
airborne, and then you hit it.
Yeah, and to the other team. But if they catch it in full lob, then you're out.
You're out.
And then the next person on your team gets a chance. But you kind of got to like how kicking in football, a ball without kicking it high in the air. So if it bounces along.
Is it hard to catch?
You have to catch it in the middle so you don't get the point.
But not when you're throwing it, but it's the same thing.
So, no, the only thing I don't know about this is the procedure say you're throwing it to me.
No, you first kind of hike it, sort of.
And then,
you make a little hole in the ground, like a little hollow.
How do I catch it with my hand? Or?
Just like you're playing golf or something, like just pitching first.
Pitch it, okay.
Well, the other team on the other end has to catch it. If they catch it without it bouncing, then you're out, like a full lob.
But what you said about hitting the stick, when you do that?
Oh, that's how the game begins. Then they have to toss the stick back, just like how they play bocce. Well, if it gets closer to where the hole is, like the div, then it depends on how far it is from there. I mean, they put if it's within like the distance of the danda, the thicker staff, then you're out. Or they can measure it like that. If not, then you get a chance to now hit the little gilli, as long as you can, it's like bouncing it in the, when you hit it on the edge,
it comes
the ends are like sharpened pencils.
It comes end over end and then it'll stick.
No, but it'll just go up in the air and then you got to hit it with the other thing.
Yeah, you get it airborne and then you slam it.
You slam it as far as you can hit it,
and then,
depending on your accuracy and if you can contact it. So it's a very skillful game.
Wow, it sounds great. Baba.
It's fun. And then it goes, and then depending on where you wind up, then they have to sort of measure with the, it's a foot long, the danda.
Danda. And they measure how far you hit.
Yeah,
and if the other team could beat you.
Yeah, so you play that when you're a kid, and it's a way of like looking, you play all around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
These are local games there, and I think Baba explained that earlier, what the gilli represented, like some of the, sanskaras or whatever, and then they are away from you.
That's great.
He gave an explanation of 7 gilli danda, 7 tiles earlier in the book, so you have to refresh that yourself. So basically that's what the game is.
Oh, it's lovely.
And it's fun to play because everybody gets in the spirit, like 7 tiles.
I can see that.
So walking tour from Kashmir to Bombay was settled after some lengthy discussions. That's quite a distance.
Oh, well, you're talking about 2,000 miles?
It's quite a distance to walk. After due preparations, all would proceed by train to Kashmir, and from there they would start for Bombay on foot. Mayor Baba stipulated that there would be enough money for food until they arrived in Kashmir. But from there they would have to beg for their daily meals. No one was to keep any money with him. Their meals would be only what was received by begging. And this begging was to last a month. All the men were to wear cotton pants, an undershirt, and a kafni made of khadi cloth, which is the hand-woven rough material that was something. Khadi is the rough, coarse cotton.
It's almost like burlap, isn't it?
Yes, and that was hand-woven. The Gandhi started that cottage industry because what was happening politically was the British were in India, and they would take the cotton out of India, have it done into fabric in their mills in London, and then resell it back among the Indian populace and all over the world, or even for themselves to make shirts. So Mahatma Gandhi, as a part of civil disobedience, started weaving their own with that little spinning wheel.
Yes, he's
It's
noted.
called a chakra.
Yes,
Chakra
yes.
means wheel. And you've seen pictures of
Yeah,
Gandhi.
that was his sort of like his way of rebellion.
And so most of the people that were involved in the political movement wore their shirts and pants out of this khadi cloth. And they still do, the members of the Congress Party, because it's like a symbol now of their political party. People like Nehru,
Yeah,
Indira
it's very
Gandhi,
coarse-looking
and so on.
clothes, but that
Yeah,
was
and
the-
now it's supposed to be
And
very
anything
much in
else.
demand. They make raw
Oh,
cotton
really? It's like a
and
fashionable.
raw silk, the stuff that people makes. Even you can make a jacket out of a raw silk material, but it's hand loomed. Well, now they've got looms where they make it by hand, where they weave the cotton or the silk, rather than making it in a mill. And they have factories for that too in India that make, fine spun cotton.
Well, there's also this tradition of wearing Indian cotton whites.
White, because it gets hot.
But they also were like a sort of a beige or yellow shirt. That's
Like
sort
a
of,
vest.
And yeah, they made that in Andhra a lot. The Andhra people.
Yes, like a raw silk. Or
Exactly, but it's like white pants or white lungi.
And then they'll wear like a little vest where they can put all their wallet.
It's like
or their
it's like a
spectacles.
common uniform, almost like
Yes,
men
and
wear
they
it.
used to wear the Gandhi
The
cap.
hat. Yes,
Like when
cap.
Nehru used to wear
Right.
that was known as the Gandhi topi or the cap.
Right, because in some of Baal Natu's
They all wear it.
Baal Natu's latest book, Volume 5, he talks about the trip to Andhra, and this KDRM, these four guys, and they were describing how they all wore the same look, the yellow like vest or with white.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing, anyway.
Exactly. So that was a particular type of cloth, and now it's supposed to be in fashion. So he describes it. It says hand-woven rough material. You can almost see like little knots in the fabric because it's done by hand.
Oh, there's a Kafni robe.
And a kafni made of khadi cloth. This is a hand-woven rough material reaching from their neck to their feet. It's almost like a full-length robe. That's what a kafni is. No one was to wear a hat, but could cover his head with a kerchief. Except for sandals, no one could wear any shoes or boots, and except for coarse woolen blankets to lie on, no one could have anything else for a bedding roll. Just a blanket, a khadi bag in which to carry one extra shirt, one extra pair of pants, one bar of soap, and one bottle of drinking water. On the 17th of June, Mayor Baba further remarked about their forthcoming journey in a serious, warning tone. According to this plan, every one of you has to become a complete fakir. And a fakir is someone who has no possessions, no relationships with anybody. He's sort of like renounced the world totally. It's a Muslim term for what they call sadhus in the Hindus. At least outwardly. You have to become a complete fakir, at least outwardly. So each of you had better think twice before deciding to go begging with me. People will ridicule you and insult you. Thorns will pierce your feet. In fact, your path will contain only thorns. Wow. So consider your health and determine if you have the fortitude necessary to bear such hardships in traveling along with me. Then let me know your decision. If any one of you is unable to go through with this undertaking completely, then he would be kept at a designated place during this period, and his connection with me will not be considered broken, because these were the mandali that he had picked. Baba allowed the mandali 2 days to ponder the matter. And now on page 532, well, you can see on a picture there Baba wearing a kafni robe in Quetta, which is a full-length robe, 1923. On the next page, we have a picture of Baba sitting by the side of a little river or a stream, with the early disciples gathered at the Urak Mountain in Quetta, 1923. And you can see Adi, Masaji, Behramji, Nervous, Abdul Rahman, Baidul, Ramju, Asma, Gustaji holding a baby.
You know what's so funny when you look at these faces of the mandali and the youth?
Yes.
They all look a little more menacing. I don't know. I mean, not menacing, but they look more. What's the word? Fiery and serious. You know, they're not so much of that. That lovey-dovey. Hello, how are you, Westerner? Yeah, these people look like they mean business.
Well, they've had a rough
upbringing or rough initiation.
And then Babu Rao.
Look at Adi's face there. Adi, you know, and Adi in his older years, you'd never think that he was there because he was so mellow and so.
Well, that's the transformation that took place by being with Baba in their personal life.
See.
And that's what he's there for, and that's for the mandali that lived in close contact with him. Babu Rao, Slamson, Pendu, Sarosh, Padri, and Jal wearing fezzes and Lucy Jangir waving.
Babu Rao? He's the one clear up
Men
here?
standing near the tree. Babu Rao. And then women standing, a Gulmai, who was Adi's mother, Khorshid, Suna, in-laws, and Khorshid, Lucy's wife. So some of this picture is kind of little overexposed to the right.
So where's Padre? Wait a minute.
Padri's in standing. He's the tall one under the tree.
Really? Why, I don't recognize him there. I see Hindu.
Where's Pendu?
Hindu's right here.
Which one?
Hindu here. With his arm up.
Okay, then
That's Pendu.
Padri's next to him.
No, Sarosh.
Sarosh. Sarosh is the tall one.
Yeah, Sarosh. And then Padre, I guess, is this one.
Padri and Jala wearing fezzes. So Padri's next to him, on the, above Gulmai.
Yeah.
With the fez.
Yeah.
And
I see
Jal,
Jal, yeah.
brother. They're
Yeah.
wearing fez hats.
Yeah.
And you can see Nervous and Baba wearing similar. Him in the center.
Where's Baba?
Baba's by the stream in the very beginning, next to Masaji, at the very bottom, with his feet touching the stone. This is Baba.
No, that's not Baba. That's Adi.
It is?
Yeah, that's Adi Kairani.
Well, then Baba's not in this,
Not
because
in the
these are all
picture, yeah.
maybe he took the picture. Uh-oh.
Adi, you recognize
Baba
him?
was
You
from-
met Adi. You met
Of
Adi.
course, but not at this
Not
age.
that time. But look at him. Look at his eyes. He's just more serious. But he has those very...
Fiery eyes.
Yeah.
I met Adi in 1977, so I don't know how
Oh, yeah.
old
Well,
he
I
was
met
at
him in
that time.
76. But
He had arthritis at
Well,
that time.
The amazing thing is,
he thought this was Baba.
wow, that's Adi.
He was?
I thought it was. I'm
No,
sorry.
Baba's not in that photo.
No, he's not. It just says Baba's early disciples. And then you have a map on the other side showing the train journey to Quetta, which is pretty close. It's in upper Pakistan, close to the Afghanistan border. Well, at that time it was part of India till
And
1940.
so that's where Katie and Gohar are from?
Yeah, they're in
So,
Pakistan,
my God.
which is now Pakistan.
No,
Quetta.
but so their roots, they're Pakistanis.
No, they're Indian, because there was no Pakistan
that's right,
in
that's
23.
That's right. So,
Pakistan came about in 1947.
so actually, Pakistanis really probably have Indian names, some of them. You know, I mean,
Well, there was migration and a lot of bloodshed during
Hindus
the breakup.
went into mother country of India.
The Hindus
The
were
Muslim
asked
state
to go back, to go into India, and the Muslims that
Were
were
asked to
living
come.
along the borders were asked to go
Yeah,
into
to Pakistan.
Pakistan. So there was heavy migration, like an exodus. And
Kashmir now wants to do the same. They want to annex themselves.
there is martial law, isn't there, in Kashmir?
I know, it's terrible.
No one can go
They
there
said
unless you live there.
Since 1987, or 88, or 89, since 1989, Kashmir is closed. Isn't that terrible?
To other than Kashmiri citizens, you have to show papers.
Well, and
that
tourists are not recommended to go up there. It's suicidal.
I had an aunt who passed away in London in '94. She had gone to India a couple of years before that, and she wanted to see Kashmir, but she was not allowed to go. So they wound up going to Japan and all that, extending their trip.
Too bad.
So that was something it's worth seeing. I can't go there myself because I am not a national. I don't live there, so it's hard unless you have proper, papers. But it's risky.
Oh, it is definitely.
There could be all kinds of uprisings happening. It's a political situation. So now we're at the Urak Mountain, page 534. Afterward, Rusi presented Meher Baba with a pastin, which is a Zoroastrian robe of Quetta. After Baba tried it on, Asma took his photograph, which depicted the master beautifully in a novel dress. And there is a photograph of Baba on the other page by the stream. Beautiful photograph.
Yeah.
Baba's foot just touching the water.
Rusi's friends and relatives would come to meet Meher Baba in Quetta, and in a short time many established close contact with him. Principal among these were Rusi's brother Sorab Jehangir Irani, Firoz Shah, Ardeshir Golwala, and Mian Khan, all of whom were greatly drawn to the master. Baba joined in the celebration of Sorab's birthday on June 19th with a game of 7 tiles. I explained that. It's supposed to, Baba explained that saying it has something to do with like the 7 planes. It has symbolisms, but from Baba's standpoint he explained what the game represented. Of tea after long intervals and less than a glassful of fruit juice once every 24 hours. He played the game 7 tiles vigorously for 2 hours in the evening and proved to be the best player. After 2 days of consideration, all of the mandali agreed to participate in the begging tour with the master. On the 20th of June, a sample of the kafni robe was prepared for Gustaji. Bless you. The design was approved by Baba, and the tailor took individual measurements to prepare one for each man. Kafnis were also made for Sadashiv and Vajiftar, who were in Pune and who were instructed by Baba to meet them in Kashmir. 1 bag, a water bottle, and a pair of sandals were also brought for Sadashiv and Vajiftar. They were informed by letter of the conditions and restrictions to be observed during the tour. On June 21st, Meher Baba with the mandali, Sorab, Rusi, and his family went to see the waterworks in the mountain pass at Urak, 14 miles away from Quetta. They stayed in the dak bungalow there, and the games of 7 tiles and thumps and bumps were played. I don't know what that is. Were played as Gulmai, Suna, Khorshed, and Rusi's wife cooked lunch. Baba served the food to all and sat down under the shade of a tree where a stream was flowing. After lunch, Sorab took photographs of Baba and of the group. They then proceeded to the reservoir, which was the main source supplying water to the whole of Quetta. Baba scaled a steep ridge of the mountain, and Sorab again took several photographs. Seeing him on the mountain ridge and the sparkling rays of the Master's divine form seemed to illuminate the entire surroundings. Sort of like Jesus on the mountain.
Exactly.
He looked so splendid that one person remarked it looked as if Baba were sending the message to the world to turn its attention toward him. He was like a beacon in the hill, telling mankind that there was nothing more worth seeing or worshipping than his own form. There's a beautiful picture of Baba at the Urak mountain stream. This is like up there where the mountains, the water comes down.
It looks so clean, the water.
Beautiful. And another photograph of Baba with his early disciples in Quetta, June 1923, on the next page. Now we go into page 537, begging tour. So on June 22nd, there was a lengthy discussion between Baba and the mandali about the upcoming foot journey. All agreed to abide by the following conditions. Number one, those who are to accompany Mayor Baba on the foot journey do so of their own free will and at their own responsibility. And in proof of this, all should sign an official stamped paper to this effect. Number two, each man has agreed not to leave Mayor Baba under any circumstances until the tour is over, though they have also agreed to obey Baba if he sends away anyone at any time to any place of his choice. Number three, despite the master's frequent advice to Asma to remain at another place, he is obstinate to remain with Baba and the mandali and wants to go on his own responsibility, cost and risk. No one is obligated to help him. Poor Asma. And that's a specific instruction written pertaining to... Number three, despite the master's frequent advice to Asma to remain at another place, he is obstinate to remain with Baba and the mandali and wants to go on his own responsibility, cost and risk. To help him. See, Baba had told Asma to be at a designated place and not taken, but Asma insisted on being with Baba and the mandali, and he said he would do that on his own cost and risk to accompany Baba on this foot journey.
So Baba is allowing it then?
It's part of the following conditions.
No one is obligated to help him.
They all agreed, no one. Means he's doing it on his own steam to follow Baba and the mandali on their journey, even though Baba had told him maybe for his health reasons or whatever reason Baba knew. He had told certain mandali that they could be at a designated place where he would tell them to be if they couldn't follow him. Until he called for them. Number four, not one of the mandali should expect any material or divine help from Meher Baba. Under no circumstances, even if one or two of the men die, should anyone expect any sort of help from him.
Wow.
That's heavy stuff. The third stipulation was discussed at great length. But Asma. It was finally concluded that Asma could accompany them despite his father's forbiddance. Regarding the fourth condition, Baba had intimated, when he first mentioned the journey, that one or two of the men might die in the near future. This is why they agreed or discussed that condition number 4. Afterward, Baba enigmatically remarked that during the journey he would be in such a spiritual state that he would be totally helpless and perhaps would have to suffer inwardly or outwardly at the hands of yogis, sadhus, and mahatmas, which Upasani Maharaj, Swami Vivekananda, and Ghaus Ali Shah had to undergo in a similar manner, that he was going to suffer, ridiculed, held in contempt, and he had warned them to expect that type of behavior. On June 23rd, the kafnis and other articles arrived for the journey. Meher Baba and the mandali donned their new outfits on this date and had their photographs taken by Sohrab. Baba decided to send Asma to Ahmedabad, which is in Gujarat state north of Bombay, from Maharashtra. It was part of Bombay state at that time, because there used to be huge provinces that they subdivided by linguistic lines in India. Baba decided to send Asma to Ahmedabad to obtain his father's permission before joining the group in Kashmir. Gustadji and Bairamji were now ordered to eat once every 32 hours instead of once every 24 hours. That's a day and a half. For relaxation, Baba went to a theater in the evening to watch a movie with the mandali, Rusi and Sora.
Look at that young Jawas.
I know.
Picture.
Jesus.
Boy.
The next day, Baba made a change in the itinerary. He had decided that they would start from Calcutta, which is further east in Bengal, instead of Kashmir, and from there proceed to Bombay on foot. Sadashiv and Wajifdar were telegraphed to meet them in Calcutta. The agreement on stamped paper was signed by each man, and preparations were made to leave for Calcutta the following day. All their other luggage was packed in trunks except for 2 shirts, 2 pants, 1 blanket, 1 kafni, 1 bottle of drinking water, a bar of soap, and a wooden staff. On the 25th of June, one of the men was sent to the railway station to buy tickets for Calcutta. But Baba again broached the topic of their destination. He asked which would be better, to begin the foot journey from Gujarat or Calcutta. Gustadji enthusiastically replied that Gujarat was better since it was his home state. Baba then sought each man's opinion. Gustadji suggested a walking expedition from Ahmedabad, but only his brother Slamson supported this idea. All others preferred Calcutta as the starting point. Ahmedabad, and sent one of the mandali to cancel the order to buy tickets for Calcutta. It was settled to proceed to Ahmedabad by train, and from there to start on the foot journey to Bombay. Since their starting point was now changed, Baba had the condition of begging for food along the way also cancelled, because it was a shorter journey. It was decided instead to eat only grams, roasted chickpeas, garbanzos. Grams are basically pulses, lentils, but they're the round ones. And these kind of grams are what they call chana. Grams are what we call chana. These are the garbanzo type. Chickpeas. And parched rice during the journey. These were bought and packed, and all the baggage was immediately dispatched to the station. Soon after, the master suddenly called for 2 matchbox containers and began threading a string through them. He kept one end with him and gave the other to Gulmai. He climbed the stairs to the next floor and told Gulmai to stay where she was. Through this telephone, Baba then told her, as we communicate by means of this phone outwardly, we must be able to communicate inwardly too. You've seen the telephones you make with matchboxes.
Yeah, with matchboxes, or
put a little string and
sometimes
connect
with a tin
to.
can. You could
We used to
put
do
a
that
hole
as
in
kids.
the bottom of the tin can.
And you'd go a distance and you talk to your friend. So he was showing them by example. We will start leading a fakir's life from Ahmedabad. He then talked to Katie through it and said, I am leaving, but you must go on remembering me. Will you do that? And she replied, how could I ever forget you, Baba? Telephones were not yet in use in India. Very ingenious. Recalling this trick from his childhood, Meher Baba was perhaps heralding the age of telephonic communication. The telephone was introduced in India after 1925 by the British. Yes. We finished in here. In Quetta, Rusi's family became completely devoted to Meher Baba's cause. Goher and Katie were transformed into little moths so that when the time came, they spontaneously flew into the light of his circle. Establishing his connection with these circle members was one aspect of his inner work during his visit to Quetta. The beloved is always in search of his lovers and always appears at the right moment to seal forever the fate of their hearts. Accepting a kiss from Goher and Katie and bidding farewell to all, Baba departed on foot with the mandali for the train station on June 25th. Rusi, Sorab, Firoz Shah and Ardeshir Golwala gave them a grand farewell. There were tears in Rusi's eyes as the train chugged out of the station. Rusi stood fixed, staring at it. His tears were calling to his beloved master, "Come back soon, come back soon." And in silence he received his reply, "I will have to return, for I've left the blossoms of my garden here." Shall I continue?
Yeah, please.
If you don't mind,
Yeah, please.
I've read this to a lot of my friends over the phone, like Baba.
I love this.
In the train, Meher Baba distributed food to the men, except Gustaji and Bairamji, whom he instructed to remain only on bread and water. Baba sipped a little sherbet, his first food in 32 hours. You know what that is? They're like ices.
Ice.
Yeah. It's not like the sherbet ice, and then they put syrup over it, so you just, it's like a flavored ice ball. They put it in a little cup. When they changed trains at Hyderabad, this is in Sindh, because there is a Hyderabad in the center of India.
Right, there is.
Sindh is now part of Pakistan. Sindh was one of the most ancient civilizations, where they have Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. They unearthed it by excavation.
Really?
Yeah, before like 12 BC.
Is Hyderabad still a city in Pakistan?
I would imagine they would have changed the
Probably
name.
changed
There is a Hyderabad there, but we have a Hyderabad in
India,
India where Baba has been, in Andhra Pradesh, I think. Yeah, there is. It's pretty close to Karachi, if you look at the map a few pages. So this is the Hyderabad up there where they were. When they changed trains at Hyderabad, a confusing incident occurred. The ticket inspector insisted on weighing all the luggage. In spite of their entreaties to persuade him otherwise, the station master then came, and he too insisted that the bedding rolls be opened, reiterating that all the luggage must be weighed and inspected, sort of like customs.
Oh, boy.
At this, Baba told Ramju to give him a copy of Upasani Maharaj's biography.
Wow.
Looking at Maharaj's and Sai Baba's photographs inside the book, the station master was very impressed and relieved them of the aggravation, because these masters were well known at that time in India. Although the men carried only their bare necessities, it was the considerable amount of the women's luggage that aroused the inspector's attention. They arrived at Ahmedabad on June 27th at 9:30 p.m. in the evening, and Sadashiv, Asma, and Vajiftar were there to meet them at the station. Asma had gone to get his father's permission, and they happened to start from Ahmedabad. Baba sent Sarosh with Gulmai, Khorshid and Suna to Ahmednagar along with the trunks. He advised Khorshid and Suna to stay in Ahmednagar until he sent for them to come to Bombay. Baba then had a private meeting with Sadashiv, Asma, and Vajiftar on the station platform. He ordered Sadashiv to return to Pune the next day with the particular kafni which had been sewn for him in Quetta. In addition, Sadashiv was to take Vajiftar's suit, shoes and hat with him and deliver them to Vajiftar's house in Bombay. According to Baba's conditions, the men could not wear anything else except the pants, shirt and kafni. So they wore the shirt and pants underneath the robe. Sort of like it gives you kind of cooling effect, the robe does. You get circulation from the air. In Ahmedabad, Slamson arranged for the group stay in a Parsi dharamshala. It's like a guest, like a dak bungalow. But the problem of lodging the three Mohammedans, Babu Rao, Ramju and Barso, cropped up, since only Parsis were allowed to stay in the dharamshala. So this is something to do with religious differences that existed. Baba quickly solved the problem by claiming to the man in charge of the rest house that the three were their servants. Hence, they were allowed to stay along with the others.
You know, it shows you Baba at times would fib.
Baba, not fib.
Well, is it a fib? Because actually they were Baba's servants.
Yeah.
They were his slaves.
Yeah.
In essence.
In essence. So, but Baba was very quick, and of course, you know, just wahatsamis.
Yes, but he made it so it was all okay.
Okay.
Collective decision. On the morning of June 28th, Baba cancelled his order of fasting for both Gustadji and Bairamji and permitted them to eat 2 meals a day along with the other mandali, the fasting for the 32 hours. But he did not discontinue his own fast, sipping only sherbet once in 24 hours. That afternoon, Baba, accompanied by the mandali, went sightseeing in Ahmedabad. Asma had explained to Baba that his father had not given consent for him to join the journey. This was the reason why, in Quetta, Baba kept insisting Asma return home. He wanted Asma's father appeased. Apparently, Asma's father was against Asma being with Baba. From Ahmedabad train station, Asma left the master and returned home. From that day on, he led a worldly life according to the wishes of his parents. He switched, which is what my parents wanted me to do.
Well, listen to this next line.
Perhaps, had he listened to Meher Baba in the first place and gone home then, the master might have called him back sometime in the future.
Ah, see that? He didn't obey. He wanted to do it his way.
Yeah.
Because he insisted. As it was, from that time on, he was never to see Meher Baba again.
Oh,
And though he remembered Baba the rest of his life, he never mentioned his name to his family. In a sense, this was Asma's death. And I think Billy told us this story about when Bao went to do research in this book.
yes.
He had gone to Bombay, and Asma's wife had forbidden it, had nothing to do with Baba in the house. And Bao kind of approached him. She asked him if there was something she could get him, like refreshments or something. And then while she went in the kitchen to prepare some tea and some, they usually offer you some snacks with the tea in someone's household. And then Bao told Asma, well, first they were just like, we've known each other from the past. And then he told Asma why he was there, was to tell Asma that he was looking for getting information from the different mandalis who were living elsewhere about their experiences so he could all jot it down and then put it all together in this book. And then Asma burst into tears, because it was after Baba had dropped his body. Because
He knew Baba dropping his body.
I'm sure he did, but he was never allowed to mention Baba or anything in that household. But Billy had mentioned, if you remember, when he was here for a reading in November or October, and I remember, so this is where it comes to. And this is something that Billy was told by Bhau, probably, in
I
India.
heard that too,
In accordance with the new diet on the tour, on June 30th, 1 sack of grams and 1 larger sack of parched rice were purchased. But being of poor quality and thinking that they would be a bulky hindrance while walking, Baba told Baidul and Bar Soap to return them. Baidul started to lift the smaller sack full of grams, and Bar Soap protested, saying Baidul should carry the heavier bag of rice. They quarreled verbally for some time, but Baidul left with the smaller bag. Bar Soap refused to touch the bigger one and hired a coolie to carry it back to the shop. When Baba came to know of this, he scolded Baidul and then ordered Bar Soap to pick up the rice sack, and as a punishment made him circle the... After this incident, it was decided to cook rice and dal during the journey, and these were purchased along with a few new cooking utensils. So you can well imagine. It's luckily they were in their 20s and early 30s, and to withhold this journey. Baba awakened the men at 2:30 a.m. on July 1st, and all took a cold bath at 2:30 a.m. Besides their own luggage, the rice and dal were divided to be carried among the stronger of the mandali. They left the dharmashala at 4 in the morning, quietly passing through the city. They reached the outskirts of Ahmedabad, where Baba ordered all to softly repeat their favorite name of God while walking. Faint whispers of Ram, Krishna, Yazdan, Ahur Mazda, Ya Allah, Allah were chanted and echoed with the sound of their steps. Baba walked in the lead, carrying his own bedding roll. His blanket was wrapped around his shoulders for warmth, as no coats were permitted, and his bag hung from one side. The mandali were not wearing their kafnis because Baba cancelled the begging order, yet they still looked extraordinary for mendicants. There's a beautiful picture of Baba during the 1920s, sitting there. You can see the blanket by his feet, rolled up, probably with his bag. That's how they were, calling on God. At 7:45 a.m., they arrived at Jetalpur village, where they rested under a tree by a pond. Although they had only walked 10 miles, they were exhausted due to the loads they were carrying. Cooking was an ordeal, and it took them over 3 hours to cook the rice and dal. An awkward and annoying situation occurred when their bucket fell in the well while they were drawing water, and it was difficult to recover. The villagers suggested using a hook on a rope which was brought from the village temple. Slamson brought the bucket out of the well after several attempts. Broken branches and twigs were gathered for a fire. Water was finally brought, and the food was cooked under the shade. They finally ate after 11 o'clock, and the meal served as a combined breakfast and lunch. He had explained all these games and their meaning. Ready? Baba had chosen a lovely and enchanting spot to halt. Peacocks were flying and dancing around them. Various saplings and trees decorated the landscape, and a charming village was seen in the distance. The natural beauty of the place seemed to soothe their tired spirits. They rested there after lunch until 3 o'clock. At first, it was decided to rest at Jetalpur until the following day, and then proceed to Kaira. But a villager told Ramju there was a shortcut to Kaira by way of the main road to Bare Jadi, 4 miles away. Baba slyly smiled when Ramju put this idea forward and approved of the new route. The mandali were still learning that when someone suggested a change in the master's fixed program, Baba would usually agree to it. But more often than not, the results were unforeseen difficulties and additional hardships. When they tried to do it their way, Baba said, "Okay, let's try it your way." Then they found out that if they had listened to Baba, he would have guided them without trouble. But that's part of their humanity. Tea was served in the afternoon, which refreshed them, and they relaxed for a while longer. After eating the leftover rice and dal for dinner, they departed for Jetalpur at 5:30. Baba ordered them to walk in pairs, and they reached Bare Jadi by sunset, and were quite sleepy, but had orders not to retire until 10 o'clock. They had got up at 2:30 the previous night, although they had rested for lunch and all that. Baba also ordered the men to keep night watch in turns of 1 hour each. The first day they had hiked 14 miles, and though tired, they were still quite enthusiastic about their fakiri adventure. The next day, Baba awakened everyone at 4 a.m., and within half an hour they started along the shortcut for Kaira. Dawn was just breaking, but it was already quite hot. Ramju was suddenly stricken with fever. The road was very rough, and they walked on loose earth inches deep. Wearing the tough Patani sandals, they had difficulty treading it. Pathans are from Afghanistan, that type of area, the mountain area, where they had made the sandals. They had difficulty treading this earth. They rested for some time under the shade of a tree, but there was not the slightest breeze to relieve the oppressive heat.
Why did it say those tough Patani sandals?
Because they're made in the mountains, because it's more rugged there, so people, there's stones, and so they made them out of durable. Than the thinner ones.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they're probably thick-soled, and it's strong leather. For walking, they have sandals you wear at home, which are very thin, slipper type. You can't go on a journey walking in those thin sandals. They'd wear out.
Oh, yeah.
Your feet will be sore. You would say they would be like the modern-day Nike, but they're, thicker. They're like shoes, but sandals. They rested for some time under the shade of a tree, but there was not the slightest breeze to relieve the oppressive heat. After further inquiry, they were told that the road they were on led far out of their way. The heavy load of utensils and grains weighed them down, and after covering only a short distance, they became so exhausted that they had to take rest under a tree. Wajifdar had blisters on his feet, and nervous began swearing at Ramju for suggesting his shortcut. This shortcut. Baba then remarked, "True, it is Ramju's fault we have taken this road, and we are all irritated about it, but that doesn't mean Nervous should pick a fight." This is the very reason Khodadad's name was changed to Nervous. It was a fact that Khodadad usually became nervous about something. For the moment, Baba's humorous remark relieved their tension. With Baba in the lead, the group resumed walking, but soon the quarrel between Nervous and Ramju became more heated. Seeing both arguing back and forth, Baba started scolding them in a booming voice. He had been fasting for the last 4 to 5 months, taking only tea twice or thrice a day and fruit juice once. But he was walking and conversing as if he were out on a relaxing stroll. Totally cool, poised. Whereas the men, though taking solid food twice a day, got so tired after a few miles that they could not even speak. It became harder and harder for them to tread onward. Although Baba had told them to repeat the name of God, calling on him to give them strength and courage, it was now automatically coming from their lips, but in exasperation rather than devotion. Almost like a curse than a praise, because they got their emotions caught up in what they were doing. Before starting, that their fez cap should be thrown away. The men were complaining about them, so to lessen their discomfort, Bairamji reminded Baba twice about disposing of the caps, but he did not reply. At last they came to a river, and a short distance across was the town of Kaira. The mandali had hopes of quenching their burning thirst, but Baba ordered that no one should drink the river water unless he instructed otherwise. So they had to remain content with splashing their faces and arms. The mandali were ready to camp there, but finding Kaira so near, they mustered their last resources, took up their loads, and began walking. Bairamji again reminded Baba about disposing the fez caps, and he said they should throw them away while crossing the river. All were happy to be rid of the sweaty headgear. After walking a mile, they arrived in the town, but to the men's consternation, Baba was not in a mood to stop. He wandered about the market and at last stopped outside a restaurant. Only Baba drank tea while the mandalis squatted nearby. A crowd gathered around them, fascinated to find such strange pilgrims. Some pitied them, and some took them to be a band of beggars and suggested the best spots for plying their trade. Some bombarded them with questions. However, when no replies were forthcoming, they jeered at them. Due to their extreme fatigue and thirst, the men longed only for some rest and a drink of cool water. They were too tired to pay any attention to the people's questions. This is how you have to be when people ridicule you, not get involved in their game. Baba finished his tea and ordered that they start walking again. After some distance, he allowed the men to rest under the shade of a tree by the tax collector's building. They put down their packs with a sigh of relief and stretched out under the branches. There was also a well in the compound, but the place proved ill-chosen, for the ground was full of rocks and the shade insufficient to shield them from the blazing sun. Despite the uncomfortable setting, all laid down. They were completely worn out, especially the stronger members whose loads were the heaviest. Wajiftar, who was the strongest, was unable to walk due to blisters on his feet. Masaji and Baidu lay on their sides, breathing heavily. Pendu and Ramju were seething from the heat, and Ramju actually began weeping out of longing to quench his thirst. Because remember, this is like May, June, and July. They are like the hottest months, just right before the monsoon, especially in Bombay, but in northern part it's more hot and dry and humid. God is all merciful, but the path to God is merciless. Now the mandali were to realize the Master's compassion and find him intervening on behalf of God. Slamson was ordered to go to the market and bring food for Gustadji to prepare lunch. They had rice and dal around noon, but ate with difficulty as their thirst was still tremendous. Baba did not allow them to take more than 1.5 glassfuls of water during the meal. Afterward, Baba again warned them not to drink water unless he told them. He asked Ramju if he wished to return home. Ramju answered that he did not wish to return, but at the same time he saw no hope of completing the pilgrimage. Padri said he was unable to go any further. Baba comforted all by saying, "Don't be disheartened. Have faith in me. I am with you. Be courageous. Don't give up."
Yeah, I think that's amazing, Padre.
Baba then ordered...
So sure. You know, it just seemed like he could go till he dropped, you know. Didn't you get that impression of it? Did you meet Padre?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I mean,
where I stayed.
So...
That was where Padre's headquarters were, outside where he was taking care of Muhammad.
Right.
In 77.
This journey was something.
Baba then ordered the group to rest in the afternoon, but because of the heat, Ramju was feeling so restless that he went to the river and began frantically throwing the muddy water over his head. Pendu's condition was so terrible that he could not speak. He would stand before Baba with his tongue swollen, silently pleading for water. Baba then gave Pendu and Ramju each an extra glassful of water, but that hardly satisfied their thirst. Finding Pendu again standing before him with his tongue protruding, Baba ordered him to drink a cup of ghee, which is clarified butter. They take the fat off, they skim the top of the butter. The mandali's condition was not due to the foot journey, since they had only walked 15 miles from Barejadi to Kaira. They were weak from lack of water amidst the intense heat, and the load they were made to carry nearly broke them. Later in the afternoon, a police officer abruptly arrived and took down their names and addresses. He warned them, "These days, kidnapping of little children by thieves and dacoits is rampant in this area, and the public is in an ugly mood. You would be wise to leave the district as soon as possible. A rumor is already about that you are a gang of kidnappers." During this period, panic was widespread throughout the villages of Gujarat, and it was natural that the public looked on this band of unshaven, disheveled, and strangely attired men with suspicion. To clear up the matter, Baba told Vajiftar to go to the police superintendent to request his help and cooperation. The superintendent was a Parsi, but due to Vajiftar's ragged appearance, the man could not believe that this was the once famous cricketer. When Vajiftar tried to explain about Mayor Baba and the purpose of their walking tour, the superintendent refused to believe a word. Vajiftar returned disappointed. Baba held a meeting and said, "We will go by train to Broch and from there resume traveling on foot. Pendu, Masaji, and Vajiftar will, however, be sent directly to Bombay by train." All approved of the idea, feeling very exhausted and needing rest. 4 bullock carts were hired, and at 7:15 p.m. they went to Mehmadabad train station, 7 miles from Kaira. With the help of a Muslim, they were lodged in a dharmashala and left for Broch on the 11 p.m. train. Although the mandali were exhausted, Baba himself did not seem to be in the least affected. Yet he had walked the same distance and carried the same load. Furthermore, the mandali were eating twice a day, whereas Baba had been fasting for the past several months. The compassionate master allowed them to eat and drink, yet he showed them how mercilessness the way could be. He would not eat for months, showing them that on the path to God, one lived by God's grace. Excuse me. At 3:30 a.m. on July 3rd, they arrived in Broch and stayed until daybreak in the compound of the Dharamshala near the station. Meanwhile, Baba, Wajiftar, and Slamson went to the city in a tonga. This is a horse-drawn carriage. Wajiftar's relatives arranged their stay in the Parsi gardens. On their return, all walked the distance of 1.5 miles to the Dharamshala. Babu Rao, Ramju, and Barsop again played their roles as servants and were able to gain entrance into the exclusively Parsi guest house. There was no kitchen to cook the food, and water was scarce due to scanty monsoon rains. Apparently there was a drought. But Gustaji managed to cook rice and dal outside. Nearby was the Narmada River, where they went to bathe. But the water was muddy and brackish, and they derived no pleasure from the bath or from washing their clothes. They returned to the Dharamshala and rested until 4 p.m. During one conversation, a self-righteous zealot staying in the guest house extolled the Zoroastrians, but bitterly criticized and condemned the Hindus and Muslims, unaware that among Meher Baba's group were both Hindus and Muslims. The mandali listened to his logic with concealed amusement. As instructed, Masaji, Pendu, and Wajiftar left Broch for Bombay. Pendu's health had suffered terribly, and he was in very weak condition. Baba, with the rest of the mandali, departed at 4 p.m. for Ankleshwar. Returning to the river, they hired a boat to take them across. The Narmada is a pretty wide and big river. It's one of the major rivers in Gujarat, just like the Ganges is in the northern part. And so they hired a boat to take them across. A strong wind was blowing, making the crossing difficult. Then a heavy rope struck Nervous on the forehead, and his eye was barely safe from being seriously injured. They had been sitting in the boat for 10 minutes, pleasantly surveying the passing scenery, when all of a sudden they heard a loud noise, and the boat came to a halt. The river was very low due to lack of rain, and the boat had floundered. With great difficulty, the boatmen extricated the boat and began rowing again. But in a few minutes, the boat again stuck to the muddy bottom. Some of the mandali jumped out and began to push, and with their effort, the boat was freed. But after going only a short distance, it got bogged down once more, and this time could not be freed. The boat was stranded in the middle of the river. However, another boat came along, and they prepared to transfer their belongings to it. With Baba leading, they climbed out of the boat and waded through the sludge to the second boat, carefully avoiding sinking in the soft bottom. Afterward, despite ending up being muddied, they found the situation humorous, and much of their tension was released. But their troubles did not end, as the second boat also was waylaid. The men got out and slowly pushed it across to the other shore. Baba told them to dry and change into fresh clothes, which they did behind bushes. They continued their foot journey, reaching Ankleshwar at 8:30 p.m. They slept on the railway station platform, and there Baba allowed them to drink as much water as they needed, which relieved them. The next train for Surat was scheduled to leave at 4 a.m., and Baba told them to rest until then, taking turns of an hour each for night watch. Leaving Ankleshwar, they reached Surat at 6 o'clock on the morning of July 4th, America's Independence Day. From the train station, they went by horse tongas to the Parsi Dharamshala, which had plenty of room. After eating, all bathed and washed their clothes, which had been soiled in the muddy Narmada river. That day they ate 3 meals, which consisted of only rice and dal, from to meet them in Navsari on July 6th. Rising at 3:15 on the morning of July 5th, they left Surat at 4 o'clock. They shouldered their luggage and walked along the railway tracks which ran parallel to the road. Reaching the town of Sachin at 9 a.m., they stopped near a porter's hut, where Gustaji cooked dal and rice for the group. After resting for 2 hours, they again started walking. They took short halts along the way and arrived at Navsari at 5:30 p.m. Although they had covered about 24 miles from Surat to Navsari and were very tired, they were not dejected as they had been in Kaira. Each one of the mandali had been completely exhausted and depressed in Kaira, while the master was quite cheerful and vigorous. But in Navsari, the opposite occurred. While the mandali were found to be in good spirits, Baba did not appear well. Baba had them camp in the Sorab gardens of the Parsi Dharamshala, which was situated in the center of the Zoroastrian community in Navsari. When they went to the well to draw water, the Parsi women and children began jeering. When the men sat down to their unvaried diet of plain dal and rice, the manager and other guests were astonished, since Parsis almost always eat meat with their meals. Baba did not eat meat as a rule. Oddly, however, a Parsi stranger came to the Dharamshala requesting Meher Baba's darshan. The master refused to see him and sent him the message that due to exhaustion he wished to be alone that day. But the man insisted. So Baba sent Gustadji in his place and instructed him to pretend to be him.
Oh no, I never heard this.
The Parsi had never seen Meher Baba and reverently offered namaskars, which is like this. Fold your hands. He respectfully greeted Gustadji with folded hands and then happily left. This unusual incident coincided with a dream Gustadji had recently had. Meanwhile, some people spread the rumor in Navsari that a gang of thieves and dacoits, or bandits, had come to the Dharamshala and that the local community should beware. These rumors implied that Meher Baba and the mandali were the criminals. Rustam had recently arrived from Ahmednagar, and Baba immediately sent him to call Sorab Desai, Mansari's father. Mansari's father. Remember the poem by Huma?
Yes, Mansari went to Baba on the 12th of January 1997.
I'm trying to. Jai Baba. Sorab was the literary scholar who was editing the Gujarati version of the biography of Upasni Maharaj. Just after Rustam left, several police officers arrived and began interrogating the mandali. Although the policeman's behavior was rude and insolent, the mandali meekly submitted to their questions and supplied them with all the necessary information about their identities and travels. The police questioned everyone in detail and recorded their statements, but the men's peculiar dress still made them suspicious. One of the detectives continued to pester them in an intimidating manner with impertinent questions. Baba then signaled Ramju to reply in a similar way, and his change of manner made the detective angry, and he threatened to take them all into custody. He then confronted the Dharamshala manager and his staff, but they pleaded innocence. Rustam returned within a short time, seeing this with a wealthy demeanor, who responded with quick, impatient answers. The detective found himself in an embarrassing position. Then Saurabh Desai arrived on the scene. He was immediately recognized as Navsari's renowned and highly respected rider. Saurabh spoke sharply to the officer, declaring, "These men are Meher Baba's disciples, and I have come for his darshan. Why are you harassing them?" This made the detective apologize. Seeing a famous man like Saurabh coming for darshan convinced him that Meher Baba must be a great personality. He asked for forgiveness and requested Meher Baba's darshan, but the master did not allow it. All the policemen then left. Meher Baba was quite happy to meet Saurabh, and it was clear to all the other mandali that this scholar was a close one in Baba's circle of followers. Saurabh wept with joy at seeing Meher Baba for the first time. He had been waiting a long time for this meeting. He invited Baba to visit his house, and he agreed. Accompanied by Gustadji and Rustam, the master went to Saurabh's home on July 6th. The previous day, Meher Baba had passed the house on his way to the Dharamshala, and Saurabh's young nieces had seen him but had been afraid, thinking him to be an Arab kidnapper. Baba smiled at the girls, but this only made them more frightened. One of them, Bapai, bravely told her little sister not to be afraid. If they said God's name, nothing would happen and the evil man would go away. Although every member of Saurabh's family had heard of Meher Baba and were inwardly devoted to him, no one had yet met him or seen his photograph. When the master came to their house, Bapai was amazed to see that the stranger she had taken to be an Arab kidnapper was Meher Baba himself. Meher Baba was indeed a notorious thief by stealing the hearts of all who love God.
Was Bapai Mansari's sister or what?
I would think so. But let's see what happens. Saurabh was a kind and gentle person who cared for his family very much. He had taken in his widowed sister Bai Mai, who had been bedridden for several years due to a severe leg fracture and was diagnosed never to be able to walk again. But upon seeing the master, a miracle occurred. Suddenly Bai Mai rose to meet Meher Baba and with tears in her eyes stood for the first time in years. Her tears wiped away the years of suffering, and from that day on she gradually regained her ability to walk. Observing a painting of Zarathustra in the house, Meher Baba declared, "This is exactly how Zarathustra looked. I am your prophet Zarathustra." His sweet voice emerged from the ocean of his godhood, and the family members felt as if divine bliss were erupting in their hearts, creating waves of love which gently embraced them. Divine light was shining in Saurabh Desai's house, bathing all in its brilliance. Each person had an experience of the Master's divinity and became oblivious of the world as Meher Baba's figure and features filled their vision. The Master sanctified the house and was particular to walk through every room. The blissful atmosphere in Baba's presence was so absorbing, the Zoroastrian priest was divinely intoxicated and became an ardent devotee of Meher Baba after meeting him at Saurabh's home. And there is a footnote. 549 page. In 1924, the footnote says, Saurabh Desai's niece, Manija, was at school in Bombay. She came to live with Meher Baba 14 years later and was renamed by the master Mansari.
Yeah.
Shai Baba
That,
Mansari.
you know,
It's so appropriate.
yeah, it's in the Nasik film. He's a little man and he looks like Mansari and he's up talking, standing on something.
Yeah.
And has one of those fez hats, I guess, on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's your
that's
uncle.
so sweet.
Oh.
That's Saurabh Desai. He was the editor of a newspaper to whom Baba used to send poems for publication under the title
Yes,
Uma.
Oh.
We have been through that when they were at the Manzil. So, also in Bombay at the time was the Zoroastrian priest named Kaikobad,
Wow.
Oh.
who also lived in the Mansari area. He's passed away now. Who with his entire family later came to live at Meherabad. Both Mansari and Kaikobad became members of Meher Baba's mandali.
Wow, that's wonderful.
In Listen Humanity, there's a story in the first chapter where Baba asked Kaikobad, who has been repeating Baba's name 100,000 times a day. And in Listen Humanity, in Don Stevens' writing, he says, Baba says that, he says, in a dimly lit room, he sees me in that light. And he says, if I were in his place, I couldn't even do that. I mean, but he says, he has yet to realize his oneness with God, and he has to go on in the path. Do you have a Listen Humanity?
Mm-hmm.
Right there, Fred.
Oh, you know where it is?
This is my most read book.
Oh, really? I didn't.
And this is when he's talking to them about, here it is. Again, this would be like a footnote because Kaikobad was since 1924, where came to live with Baba 14 years later. This was the priest that met them at Saurabh Desai's house. And he's a Dastur. So Baba was dictating this in 1953 or 54 when this action took place. Don Stevens was there. He says, now that you're in my sahavas, Baba's smile faded and began to look serious again. Now that you're in my sahavas, you should know all about my habits and about my behavior to the mandali who live with me. I love Kaikobad, one of the resident mandali, and often bow down to him. Whenever I go out on mosque tours or for the other congregations, I ask Kaikobad to lay his hand on my head and bless me. Recently at Satara, he wept and protested, but I told him to continue to obey me to the point of kicking me should I ask him to do so. Kaikobad has been with me for 12 years. He has his family. They are staying on Meherabad Hill, which is a separate group of buildings about 1/2 mile from the collection in which the Sahabas programs were being held down at the bottom of the road. During this time, they were occupied, in addition to the staff, by Francis Brabazon, the distinguished Australian poet, and the narrator, who were the only Occidentals, the narrator being Don Stevens, who were the only Occidental.
What year was that?
This is probably, well, if he came to live with Baba 14 years after 24, that would be 38, 12. About 52, 50 took place. He says, he has dedicated everything to me and I have accepted him. He belongs to the Parsi Zoroastrian priest class, and hence he is also called Dastur. A Dastur is a priest.
Yes.
which means a priest, and he is a real priest. He sees Baba as Baba is to be seen, and he takes Baba's blessings as blessings are to be taken. He has also been silently repeating Baba's name 100,000 times every 24 hours all these years. Every 100,000 times.
Baba was ordered?
No, on his own. That's devotion. He had the first glimpse of divinity at Mehrabad in 1946. Again, on August 31st, 1953, he experienced at Dehradun such bliss that he was on the point of dropping his body. Now he says he can see glimpses of my reality whenever he wishes. At such moments, he sees even in a dark room lit up with such brilliance that compared with it, the brilliance of the sun is nothing. Then in that light, he sees me. That is no miracle performed by me. I cannot do that myself. I know only one thing, that I'm everywhere and in everything. Despite all that, Kaikobad has yet to realize God. He is on the path and he has to go on and on. He often tells me that he's enjoying my grace, and I always tell him, and I mean it, that it is his love for me that gives him the wonderful experiences of the path. Even though glimpses, his experiences give him deep bliss and the unshakable conviction that I am his master. Therefore, he will carry out any of my orders promptly and cheerfully. Kaikobad, Baba gestured as he looked toward the back of the audience. Stand up. A slim, gentle-faced man stood up about 2/3 of the way back in the hall. Is not what I have said true? Baba queried. Yes, Baba, everything you have said is exactly true, Kaikobad replied, and looking for a moment at Baba to see if anything further was demanded of him, he sat down. And then Baba says, whatever I say, Baba resumed, I say it in all sincerity. Unquestioning obedience to me without consciously knowing me will bring you nearest to me. But it is impossible to obey me literally and spontaneously. If I were in your place, I myself would not be able to do that. So he says the best thing for you would be to obey me cheerfully. In any case, though, to obey me now, when you have not yet consciously experienced my greatness, is in itself a great thing. Much of the value of obedience is lost once conviction is transformed into actual conscious knowledge of my reality. That is the purpose for which you have been called. Just a footnote. And here, thank you, Fred. And that's what it says here on page is that when he was in Saurabh Desai's house, 559?
549 is the bottom.
The blissful atmosphere in Baba's presence was so absorbing that even an orthodox Zoroastrian priest was divinely intoxicated and became an ardent devotee of Meher Baba after meeting him at Saurabh's home. Since then, he had a bliss, the whole atmosphere pervaded this home and they saw some of the reality of Baba was not just the physical form, but the reality behind the form.
That one paragraph, his sweet voice emerged from the ocean of his godhood, that one, it just, wow.
Because they were focusing on a picture of a painting of Zohar, which is a painting that you may have seen of Zohar. It's
I
in
have
the
seen
book,
it before.
in here.
That whole paragraph was sublime.
It is, and that's why I try to expand a little bit about that.
That was a special paragraph in describing Baba and the ecstasy others were experiencing along with the bliss and a Zoroastrian priest becoming intoxicated.
And that was Kaikabad. And then the niece of Saurabh Desai was our beloved Mansari, who dropped her body this Sunday on the 12th, Monday in India. She passed away 12th.
No, it was Saturday night when we heard here. We were here at the meeting.
It was Sunday.
It was Sunday
in
morning.
India.
Yeah, it was
the 12th in India.
Yes.
11th.
Yeah.
It was 11th here.
Yeah.
It was
their 12th.
It was basically about 6:45 here, or something like 6:15 p.m. our time. When it happened.
So that's what it was all about. Shall we pause or shall we continue?
What time do you have?
It's 9 o'clock. And I'm getting a little...
Well, there's only about 10 minutes of tape left.
Can we talk for 10
Can we just
minutes?
finish the 10 minutes and that way both sides of the tape?
Yes. Saurabh became a flame in the Master's fire of divine love, and he recognized it was the same fire as Zarathustra's. Meher Baba captured the hearts of the Desai family, and thereafter returned to the Dharamshala. He once again surprised the mandali by immediately cancelling the plan for the foot journey to Bombay, deciding instead to stay in Nasik for 3 months. Acting accordingly, Gustadji went to Andheri, a suburb of Bombay, to obtain permission to use his relative's house in Nasik. Rustam accompanied Gustadji to help persuade the relative. The foot journey came to a sudden end at Navsari. They had covered 65 miles in 5 days. After the evening meal, they went to the railway station at 8 o'clock. The Desai family, friends and acquaintances were there. Saurabh sat next to Baba while waiting for the train. In a melodious voice, Baba discoursed to him on different spiritual themes. The whole family was overjoyed to be in Baba's presence after having heard so much about him for a long time. Baba and the mandali then left for Nasik on the 10 p.m. train. And there's a poem by Babu. He who came from light was light itself. The light vanished, leaving the moths behind. They came to him, to the light, but when they discovered themselves to be moths, the light disappeared from view. But how could moths remain without light? Now life itself becomes a constant search to find the everlasting light that he had come from. After a train ride through the night, Baba and the mandali arrived at the Dadar station in Bombay at 5:30 a.m. on July 7th, not far from where I was born. Gustadji and Barjor P. Dahiwala were waiting at the station, and all immediately left for another station where a train was scheduled to depart for Nasik at 7:25 a.m. News of Meher Baba's arrival had spread throughout the city among his followers. Besides Barjor, Naval and Dina Talati, Hormasji and Rupa Mai Karani, Dina's parents, the devotees of Charni Road were also present. Barjor brought cooked rice and dal for them to take in the train, and Baba lovingly greeted each person. Masaji also met Baba at the station to rejoin the mandali at Nasik. Pendu, who had recovered his health, had departed for Quetta. During the train ride, Baba distributed the food to the men. He drank only coffee, not breaking his liquid fast of several months. A Parsi in their compartment gazed fixedly at Baba for a long time. The man could not bear the splendor of Baba's beauty and eventually was overcome and fell at the feet of the master. After he regained his composure, Baba embraced him compassionately and inquired about him. They reached Nasik at 2:45 p.m. and Syed Sahib was waiting to receive them. They rode in Tongas to Noman Bhai's bungalow where they were to lodge. The house was 6 miles from the station and was quite airy and spacious. Noman Bhai was one of the original followers from the days of the Kasbah Peth Toddy shop in Pune. Syed Sahib brought rice, dal, and spinach. Baba's favorite food was rice, dal, and spinach. But Baba returned the spinach as the mandali were under his strict orders to eat only rice and dal. Nevertheless, the meal was quite tasty, and after many days, the mandali again enjoyed a deliciously spiced dal. On July 8th, Baba went with Gustadji, Munshi, and Bairamji in search of a permanent house to stay in Nasik. He selected a place by the riverside near Gangapur and returned to Noman Bhai's to explain his next move. However, within 2 hours, he suddenly changed his plan of staying in Nasik and made the critical remark, "I've heard there are many dacoits here who kidnap children, so it's not good to remain in such a place." See how he used that excuse somewhere else for himself. After a lengthy discussion about where to travel next, it was decided to return to Meherabad the next day, July 9th. From 4:30 a.m., Aziz Ahmed, who had met the master in Manzil-e-Mim, drove his car back and forth 3 times to the station, transporting the men and all the luggage. They left Nasik at 7:30 a.m. by train, arriving in Manmad 3 hours later. Manmad is a huge junction where a lot of trains go. Yeah. Masaji cooked rice and dal on the station platform. Then they departed on the 12:15 p.m. train to Dhond, reaching Ahmednagar at 5:30.
That train is still running.
Yes.
People always go through Dhond.
I remember these names, Dhond, Manmad. Shouldering the luggage, they walked the 5 miles to Meherabad. July 9th was indeed an auspicious day because in the evening, Meher Baba, after fasting only on liquids for 6 months, joined the mandali for dinner. He ate a small amount of rice and dal. The following day, arrangements to stay in the post office building began. Slamson, Masaji, and Padri went to Ahmednagar and bought the necessary materials for repair.